What's up, guys? 1-0 yesterday with a win on the Houston Astros. They covered the -1.5 run line and hit on the money line, obviously. And it did require them to score 4 runs in the bottom of the 8th to win by 3. They were losing kind of close game for the beginning stretch of it. Verlander got slightly outpitched, I guess I would say, by Gibson. It wasn't by much. Neither pitcher did that well, but comes down to the bullpens. I mean, the full game was part of the handicap. The bullpen situation was part of it as well, and I thought the Astros had the edge there, so that's what put it over. So, was it a little bit lucky? I don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna say that I think that I mishandicapped that particular game, but we'll move on to today. Anyway, we're still waiting on NHL and NBA to start. We don't have to wait that long for the NBA, which I think starts Thursday, and then in 2 days from now, and then the NHL I think doesn't start until Saturday, something like that. All right, let's look at today's baseball slate. We have a full baseball slate today. A couple of these pitchers are still undecided. It looks like. I will mention quickly. I'm not actually going to do it, but I think the Chicago Cubs, are at a pretty big advantage today, but it's pretty much being baked into the line. I mean, they're a huge favorite, -275, although it looks like it's down from -300. Their public was 76% of the tickets, although it does look like they have 84% of the cash. So I don't know if that line movement is actually totally valid, but I think it's a huge mismatch there, and it's the Chicago series, Cubs versus White Sox. It's at Wrigley. Neither team played yesterday, I don't think, so both teams are kind of at the same rest advantage, where the Cubs are just the better team, as the line is telling you. But I think they have a huge pitching mismatch in that one with Imanaga pitching for the Cubs. I've been talking about how good he's been all season, really, as a rookie. He finally had a bad start in his last outing against a very good Milwaukee lineup. He did very poorly in that one, but based on how he's pitched the rest of the season, I think he's in a bounce-back spot. I think he's going to pitch a lot better against a weak White Sox offense, and these White Sox hitters have, of course, never faced him before, so I think that gives him a little bit of an edge there. And for the White Sox, Chris Flexen is pitching, and he's not been cutting it, man, even though I think his ERA actually doesn't look that bad. I think it actually might be in the 3s now, but his whip is pretty high, like above 1.3, and kind of indicative that his ERA should be a lot worse than it is. The rest of his stats aren't very good, and his stats against the Cubs are bad. So the Cubs, I think, do have a huge edge in that one, but they're a huge favorite for a reason. So it's not one that I actually want to get involved in. I want to find maybe a little bit more value. One way I'm going to go here is actually to play the under in one of the earlier evening games, 6:40 p.m., Dodgers at Pirates. I'm going to go ahead and play an under in this one. I like the pitching matchup for it, and I like the fact that both of these teams are rested as well. Neither of these teams played yesterday, so you're going to have the teams are at full bullpen capacity, basically, which is one thing that kind of factors into playing an under in some of these situations. I like that the teams are going to have all of their relievers pretty much available and to use how they want to, which I think helps out with an under. It helps out with the team's pitching performances, but the starting pitching matchup, I think, is indicative of an under too, although the market actually looks like it's going against it. The market looks like it's gone up from 7.5 juice to the under up to 7.5 juice to the over, with the over being public for some reason, 86% of the tickets, but 96% of the cash looks like it's on the over according to these numbers on pregame screen. I'm not sure I really agree with any of that. I'm not sure that I buy that those are accurate numbers there, or that line movement even is actually accurate, because I do see some other places like Action Network saying that this thing opened 8 and then dropped to the 7.5 juice to the over. So I don't know. But right now, I think you can get under 7.5 with reduced juice right now. And obviously the under is the way I'm going here based on the fact that the bullpens are rested and this starting pitching matchup here. You can get under 7.5 at -104 right now, which is a pretty cheap price. I like it. What else was I going to say here on this one? I forget what else I was going to say. You do have, I was going to say, I think maybe the public is on the over just because maybe it is the Dodgers and they have one of the better hitting teams in baseball. Sure. But to get this thing over, man, even though it is kind of a low total, 7.5, so the odds makers are telling you they think this is a good pitching matchup, like two good pitchers here, which is why the total is so low. And I agree with that. But also, it's going to take two teams to send this thing over, I think, man. I think that when you have two good pitchers like this, that's going to hopefully keep both offenses in check enough that it will stay under the total. So even though, yes, one of the team's offenses is quite good in the Dodgers, I think that can be mitigated a bit by the pitching that they're facing. So on the Dodgers side, I think you also don't really have to worry about their pitching, although now I'm going to jinx myself. But the Dodgers have Tyler Glasnow pitching. He's basically their ace at this point. They picked him up in a trade with Tampa Bay, I believe, after last year. And he's been pitching well for a long time at this point, man. His career stats are really good. His strikeout numbers over his career are insanely high, really. He's a very good strikeout pitcher. His numbers on the season are good. 3.04 ERA, and maybe that should even be lower than it is, a 0.91 whip. So whip south of 1. I mean, there's been nothing to really dislike about Glasnow all year, basically. He had one start where he stumbled and gave up 6 runs against Washington. He gave up 4 against the Reds, and other than that, he hasn't allowed more than 3 in any start, and the one where he allowed 3 against San Francisco, that was in there. And then besides that, he's only allowed 2 or fewer earned runs in all of his starts. So he's been basically dominant. He's been one of the best pitchers in baseball. 74 innings pitched, only 46 hits allowed. So he's been essentially unhittable. That is a crazy low hit rate. It's almost like he's allowing 1 hit per 2 innings almost with that rate. That's just insane. Not quite that crazy, but almost. 21 walks is a little bit high, so he does have a little wildness to him, but when you're that unhittable, it doesn't matter as much. He's got 95 strikeouts to go with it, too, so a very high strikeout rate again for Glasnow. And looking at his stats against the Pittsburgh Pirates, hitters, we have not a huge sample size to work with, actually. Only 5 of their hitters have actually faced him before because he's been in the AL, I think, for most of his career at this point. Rowdy Tellez, how do you pronounce his name? Rowdy, man, we're getting rowdy here. Tellez is Tellez. I have no idea how to pronounce that guy's name. He's the hitter that has the most at-bats for Pittsburgh against Glasnow with 14 at-bats. And he's hit him well, 4 for 14 with 2 home runs. But if you factor in the rest of these guys against him, it's not looking that great. Pittsburgh as a whole, throughout the 5 hitters that have seen him, are 5 for 22 off him lifetime with a double. And yes, with those 2 home runs, but both from Tellez. 4 RBIs, also all from Tellez. 5 walks, which isn't that great. I mean, it's a little bit of wildness again, like we see from Glasnow from time to time. And 8 strikeouts, 4 of them also against Tellez. A huge sample size with him. But what it all amounts to is a 227 batting average from Pittsburgh's hitters who have seen Glasnow before. So that's a pretty low batting average, but a somewhat high 916 OPS because of the 2 home runs from Tellez. But he's been the only one really that's hit him. So it's not like the whole Pittsburgh lineup hits him well. Like half of Pittsburgh's lineup has never seen him before, and it's possible that Glasnow is pitching well enough that he can just work around Tellez. I mean, Tellez is only going to see him, 4 times, 5 times maybe during the game? Well, no, because he's the starter, so even though Tellez will probably be up 4 or 5 times in the game, he'll probably only see Glasnow like maybe 3 times. Glasnow going deep into the game probably, as he usually does. So you can work around like one guy who can hit you pretty well. So I'm not that concerned about that. So Glasnow, I mean, he's still one of the best pitchers in baseball, man. So what else do you want there? And then on the other side, I'm going back to the well, as I usually do, man. It's Jared Jones for Pittsburgh, rookie pitcher for Pittsburgh. He's only 22 years old. I mean, he's had a few moments of shakiness, but overall he's having a good season with a 3.55 ERA, not bad, especially for a rookie. A 1.01 whip is quite good. Maybe indicative of his ERA should be a little bit lower than that. I think maybe he's in a bounce back mode too, because he's off of his worst start of the season, giving up 5 runs to Detroit, who seems to all of a sudden have kind of started clicking offensively a little bit. He had a bad start in that one, but if you take that start away, he hasn't allowed more than 3 earned runs in any start besides that this season. It seems like he has consistently kind of given up 3 earned runs in a lot of these starts, though, going like 5 to 6 innings in each start, which isn't the best, but I think it's enough to keep this thing under. And you look at the rest of his stats this season, I mean, it's a low whip, but also a high strikeout rate. He's got 63 1/3 innings so far this year, 52 hits allowed, so it's a pretty low hit rate as well. He's allowed 11 home runs. That's kind of a lot, so he does need to keep that down. But a lot of that came in the earlier part of the season. In April, he gave up a bunch of them. He gave up 7 of the 11 in April. And in May, he kind of toned it down. So that the home run numbers allowed kind of dropped. And he did face the Cubs twice in May as well. So that's maybe not the easiest lineup to face, I guess I would say. Although I think they've been struggling a little bit offensively more recently. But the home run number, a little bit high for Jones. But other than that, he's got 12 walks allowed. That's not very high. That's not bad. And 70 strikeouts. So high strikeout rate, man. Well over 9 per 9 innings. Very good strikeout to walk ratio there. So Jones, I mean, he's got good stats overall. And then versus the LA Dodgers, well, of course, I mean, Jones is a rookie. Even though he is in the NL, the Dodgers have never seen him before. So you have this good young pitcher, even though there is some better scouting on him now and some footage on him. The Dodgers still have not faced him in a real live environment before. So I think that's going to help Jones. The pitcher usually has the edge against hitters who have never actually faced him in a live game before the first couple times through. So the pitching matchup and the fact that these bullpens are rested, that's all conducive to an under here. So I'll take the under. Give me the reduced juice. That's cool too. I'll take the under 7.5 minus 104 in Pirates Dodgers. And then the other game I'm going to be on, I'm going to play a side here actually in one of the later slate games on the Pacific Coast. San Diego at Anaheim. I'm going to actually come in and play the San Diego Padres to bounce back and grab this one after they lost the game yesterday 2-1 to the Angels to kick off the series. Angels were actually returning home from the road in that one, but it was only a quick road trip that only took them to Seattle. So maybe they weren't in like the most majorly distracted spot, I guess, at home returning just from that short trip. So it wasn't the worst return home spot. The Padres, I think, were starting a road trip, or were they continuing one? I forget. No, they were continuing one. So they were actually having to go. Padres actually maybe were even in the worse travel spot there because they were actually having to go out to Anaheim from Kansas City. So they were actually having to travel multiple time zones, I think, out to the Pacific Coast, whereas they were facing an Anaheim team that was staying on the Pacific Coast. So maybe not exactly the best spot for San Diego yesterday. And looking at the box score of that game, both teams pretty much maintained their bullpens there. Both starters went fairly deep into the game yesterday. I was thinking about maybe even playing an under in that one yesterday. Maybe I should have because both starters did quite well. Anderson has been pitching pretty well, actually, sneakily for Anaheim. And Waldron, the knuckleballer for San Diego, had it going yesterday and didn't even walk anybody. And he was basically unhittable in the game yesterday. So both pitchers did pretty well. And I think Anaheim had never seen him before either. But when it comes down to it, talking about today's game, both teams only used 2 of their relief pitchers. So we have a lot of the bullpens still intact for these teams coming into today, even though the teams did use some of their better bullpens, better relievers, I should say, because it was a close game late. Although the Padres only used Estrada for 4 pitches. So I wouldn't think that he's even unavailable today if they really want to use him. Angels did use their closer in Estevez, so he's probably not available today, but we'll see if that winds up mattering because I do like San Diego here, and hopefully San Diego has the lead, and that won't matter as much. Although even if it does, we're going against LA. So LA used, or Anaheim, I should say, they used their closer yesterday. So not a big deal when we're going against them. What else am I going to say here? I forget what else. So yeah, San Diego actually, their bullpen is actually in a little bit of the better spot because they use that one reliever for 4 pitches. So they might even have him still available. So they might only have one reliever who's actually totally unavailable, whereas Anaheim has 2, including their closer. So I'm not too concerned about that. It does make it a bounce back spot for San Diego. Now San Diego's adjusted to playing on the Pacific Coast. Lost the first game, kind of embarrassingly, I guess, because it is to the Angels. The Angels have been one of the worst teams in baseball, man, even though they've actually been decent on the road, so their overall record isn't that bad. But at home, they've been one of the worst teams in baseball. They are the worst team in baseball at home, actually. They are the only team that doesn't have at least 10 home wins, I think, at this point. They're 8-21 at home, the Angels, and they actually somehow won last night with a 2-1 win at home. But we're going against the LA Angels at home. That hasn't been a bad way to go this season, man. They have really had almost no home field advantage. I don't think they're drawing the crowds. I mean, Mike Trout isn't there anymore, and they just don't really have a team that people want to show up for. which is kind of sad, really. I mean, I've been to a game out there in Anaheim's park, and it's a decent experience out there. I mean, it's a decent park. I kind of remember when it was built. I think in like the '90s, late '90s, early 2000s. It's not like a terribly old park. It's not a bad atmosphere there. I saw a game against the Twins there that went into extra innings like way back, and I was sitting with some Twins fans. What the Angels actually do, it's story time with Toad for a little bit. The Angels actually, because they usually, unfortunately, they tend to like not sell out. They have kind of a decent capacity stadium there. They knock some of the ticket prices down to half price in the hour before game time to try to sell more tickets right at the end there. So I got involved in that when I was out there. I just was like, I'm going to go to the game, check it out. Jumped in. It was a half price ticket window there in the hour leading up to game time. I was like, all right, hell yeah. I got like a seat, I think 6 rows back, kind of down the first baseline. Not a bad seat at all. Not bad. It was like 30 something bucks. I was like, yeah, hell yeah. I'll do that. All right. So Anaheim Angels, but they've been sucking ass at home, which is the point that I was trying to make here. So we're going against them at home. Not a big deal. And let's look at the starting pitching matchup here, man, before I get out of here. San Diego has Adam Mazur pitching. Who the hell is Adam Mazur? I don't know, but we're probably going to get value because he's an unknown quantity to everybody, an unknown pitcher. So looking at the line, I don't see the percentages yet, but I do see that Anaheim has moved up from -101 to -105 as a very small money line. I don't even know if you can call them a favorite, really, because -105 is like less than -110. So it's like less than a pick'em price on the Angels. And let me see, what price can we even get on San Diego right now? Because obviously this is just going to be a straight up money line play. You're basically just taking an almost pick'em price there. The prices vary. San Diego's anywhere from -104 to -115. So you can get -104, kind of a cheap price on San Diego there, like lower than the -110 price. So yeah, that's what I would do in this one. Take San Diego on the money line. Just make it simple. Take them to win the game. I like when these baseball games have the money line, like basically right around the -110 range there. You can just pick the team to win. So that's what we'll do. So Adam Mazur is pitching. I think San Diego, maybe they're getting a little bit shortchanged here because I think pretty clearly they're the better team, and they're being, they are being lined as the better team because Anaheim's not getting the full home field in this line here. They're getting less than home field. So the odds makers are telling you San Diego's the better team, and maybe even telling you maybe they even have the better of this matchup. But I think maybe San Diego's even being a little bit shortchanged because nobody knows who this guy is. But he's not a bad pitcher, man. I mean, he's making his major league debut. So, I tend to sometimes like to jump in on these major league debut guys here. Adam Mazur, he's 23 years old. He's 6'2", so he's somewhat tall, somewhat of a tall presence on the mound. He's listed at 180, which seems a little bit thin. You kind of want a pitcher that has some like weight behind it, but I heard he's like put on some weight to try to add some like oomph behind his pitches, let's say. And I've read the scouting reports on him. He's like one of the top 5 prospects in San Diego's organization. So that's kind of a good sign when he's like a top prospect. He throws in the mid-90s, which is not bad for a fastball. So that's like decent enough velocity that you can throw well as a major league starter as long as you have other pitches, which he does. So he's like a 4-pitch guy, and his slider is apparently like his best pitch. He has like a hard breaking slider. So I do like that. So that's like some stuff that can fool hitters at the major league level. So I like that. I didn't read into what his other pitches are, but I read that he does have a 4-pitch arsenal. So that's a decent sign as well for a guy who's going to come up and try to get into a team's starting rotation. Of course, San Diego kind of has no choice right now because half of their starting pitching staff is injured, which is why they're doing this, which is why they're giving him the call up here. One concern is that Mazur has been struggling a bit at AAA. He was dominating at the lower levels of baseball, and he was really doing well in AA. Had like really low ERA, whip, very good strikeout to walk numbers, very low walk numbers. One thing about him is he has good control, though in AAA he's given up some runs. His ERA is bad in AAA, but it is a very small sample size, so I'm not that concerned about it really, because in the larger sample size in AA, even though it was a lower level of baseball by a bit, he was pitching so well that I don't think he's as bad as his AAA numbers look, where he's allowed, I think, 15 runs in 19 innings or something like that, which looks bad, but his control numbers are pretty good, man, throughout his stints in the minors, so that looks good. He doesn't walk a lot of guys, so that's something that obviously translates to Major League Baseball as well. He's just going to not be as hittable. So maybe that's a little bit of a concern that he's been a little bit hittable in AAA, but it's such a small sample size. I mean, 19 innings pitched. What can you even take away from that? Like in the AA, we're looking at, I don't know, 50 to 70 innings pitched. So we're looking at a lot more there. And of course, as I always say, when a guy gets the call up like this and it's his major league debut and he's a decent prospect, he has decent stuff that we think could fool hitters at the major league level. Well, he has a little bit of that built-in edge there because these hitters have never seen him before. I just said it with Jared Jones. I'm going to say it again here. I think the pitcher, Mazur, has a little bit of an edge. Is it Mazur, Mazur? I think it's Mazur. I don't know. That's how I'll pronounce it. I think he's got a little bit of the edge there, man. Given that these hitters haven't seen him before. And it's not like Anaheim has the most elite lineup in baseball either. They do not have a very good offense. So I think that helps as well. So I like the Mazur side here. And on the other side, Patrick Sandoval is pitching for LA, or for Anaheim, I should say. I mean, he's still pretty young dude, lefty. He's 27 years old, but his career stats, man, there's just not a whole lot to like there, man. Even in his 2022 season where he had a good ERA at 2.91, his whip was 1.34. So, I mean, he was putting a lot of guys on base still, and he was just kind of getting away with it. And other than that, not great. His 2021 season actually was a bit better with a 1.21 whip, but only 14 starts in that one. So only really like half a season and a 3.62 ERA. But over his career, his ERA is 4 and his whip is 1.38, which is a very high whip, indicative that his ERA should probably even be higher than that. And he has fewer than 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, which isn't that great. 512 and 517 innings pitched, 228 walks is pretty abysmal. I mean, that's real wildness there. His walk numbers have not gotten under control, and a lot of that has continued this year, man. He has struggled quite a bit with his control and otherwise. This season, he's got a 5.34 ERA and 1.48 whip, so he has been struggling quite a bit, and he's coming off one of his better starts of the season, actually, where he had 7 strikeouts in 6 innings and only allowed 2 hits, but walked 3 guys. So again, he was wild against the New York Yankees, like the best lineup, one of the best lineups in baseball, and the best lineup he's faced this season. And he actually had a good start in that one and got pumped up for that. But is he going to be pumped up for facing the San Diego Padres? I don't know. I mean, it is a Southern California battle, I guess. But the start prior to that, he allowed 8 runs against Cleveland. So I don't know. Is he alternating good and bad starts? I mean, he had a good start against Texas in between those two. And then the start prior to that, he gave up 4 and gave up 11 hits against the Kansas City Royals. So he has kind of been alternating good and bad starts. So maybe that's indicating that he's going to have a little bit of a regression in this start too, after he, I think, got up for a big start against the Yankees and pitched pretty well in that one. He went over 100 pitches in that one. He's gone over 100 pitches 4 times this season, and that was one of them. And I don't know, man. We'll see. The last time he went over 100 pitches, he pitched against Kansas City the start after that and didn't do as well yet again. So we'll see what there is to take away from that. But Sandoval overall, man, his stats not very good. He's allowed 63 hits this season in 60 2/3 innings pitched, so more than 1 hit in an inning. And on top of that, 27 walks, which is why his whip is so high. He's putting a ton of men on base, man, about 1.5 per inning. I mean, that's going to translate to runs allowed. There's just nothing else to say about that. And he does have 64 strikeouts, which isn't that bad. So he's averaging more than 1 an inning this season so far. Kind of close to what he's done over his career, though. But he's a pitcher that has been struggling overall and just can be had, man. And especially because of the walk numbers. He's putting way too many men on base. And versus the San Diego Padres, we have an okay sample size here. Most of their hitters have faced him. And they are 12 for 37 off him lifetime with a double, 3 home runs, 4 RBIs, 6-2 strikeout walk ratio. But it's a 324 batting average for these Padres hitters against him and a 970 OPS. So Sandoval, his numbers against these Padres hitters are not good either. So that's going to be the play, man. I think the Padres have the edge there for all those reasons that I just said. That's going to do it. So the 2 baseball plays today are the under in Dodgers Pirates, under 7.5, -104. You can get right now, and another -104 play here. San Diego Padres, money line, -104. That's going to do it for me, man. Peace.